7 rounds. Yes, Hickok 45, your internet shooting companion. Definitely your companion. Yes. Coming to you from Tennessee, the home of Morgan Freeman. Did you know that? Yeah, man. The man with the unbelievable voice. Great actor. From Tennessee. I think Memphis, right? So, you know, there's a Morgantown in, well, I'd be silly, in Tennessee. But anyway, appreciate you coming by. Not quite as loud this Sunday, is it? It's getting a little better. Yeah, whew. We needed it. I think last week's Sunday video might have been the worst. Yeah, probably ran a lot of people off last Sunday. So yeah, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. So what am I firing? I don't know. Felt like a 357 Magnum, and that's what kind of rounds were in it too. 357 Magnum from Underwood. Yeah, 158 grain, 1400 feet per second. They felt fairly Magnum. Yeah, pretty well magnumized rounds. And it is a Smith & Wesson. Guess what? Can you tell what it is? Can you tell? And it's another purchase this past week. Yeah, I didn't tell you about it, yeah? I guess not. Yeah, it is the 686 Mountain Gun, the new one from Smith & Wesson. 686 Mountain Gun, 357-38. Originally I thought I would probably need one of these new mountain guns from Smith, especially no key lock and all that, no sleeve barrels, and even the 44, right? It doesn't have a sleeve barrel, I don't think, does it? But anyway, I thought the 44 is the one I would probably want, you know, being a 44 guy. But you know, the more I thought about it, I've got so many 44s, got a lot of 357s as well. But I don't know, that kind of largely a duplicate of some other firearms I have. And there's something about this one. Well, I looked at it at either the NRA or SHOT Show or both. I don't know, that was a little weird with no pin at the end of the ejector rod there. I don't know, it kind of bothered me a little bit. It's not really a triple lock, it's still a double lock, just in different places. I don't know about that. Kind of weird, maybe. And so anyway, but I don't know, I got to thinking about this one. I watched somebody in a video giving a lot of close-ups and explaining it, and the more I looked at it, I thought, yeah, that is pretty cool. I probably need one of those. And so you know how that goes. Need develops into owning. Yeah, and I kind of like it. I had a little issue with it. I'll tell you about it, how I fixed it, being the gunsmith I am. Yeah, I got another firearm out here. Now this one's mine. I bought it. This is borrowed from Gallery of Guns, Davidson's. This is a Pietta Trio, and it is chambered in, guess what? You got some time for me to tell you? It's chambered in 38 Super, 9mm, 357 Magnum, 38 Special, and 45 Colt. That last part was a joke. You were already wondering, those who know firearms, wait a minute, 45 Colt, how do you do that? Change out the barrel? You're right. So whenever you see a firearm that's got different cylinders, interchangeable cylinders, whether it's 22 or like this, and, I don't know, what are some other, well, you got 44 Special, 44 Magnum, you have cylinders for some guns, and I have, you know, one of my Colt single action, that sheriff's model, is chambered in, well, 44. But I got a cylinder for 44-40 and 44 Special, you know. So there is a limiting factor in how many things you can have one gun chambered for. What is that big limiting factor? Yeah, come on. Yep, somebody shouted it out. caliber, unless you're going to change out the barrel. So all those I mentioned, with other than 45, which was a joke, all those are about the same diameter bullet. They're different cartridges, fairly dramatically. You know, here's a 350, so I don't have a 9mm with me, but you know, here's a big old long 357 Magnum round. If I had a 9mm, it'd be about half that length, maybe, you know, and no rim and all that. But you know, you can accommodate that, take care of that with the cylinder. You do have to interchange, take out the cylinder. Okay, there are 3 cylinders that came with this. That's why it's called the Trio. So, you know, I don't know of any firearm that would chamber all those things with just one cylinder, even with clips or something, really, all those different ones. So, yeah. There are 2 other cylinders come with it. One for 9mm and one for 38 Super. And I fired the 38 Super in it. And I've not fired this 38 357 cylinder. It was a little rough. It was hanging up. I thought I was going to have to send it back. Okay, but it smoothed out. Kind of oiled it and put a little bit of a copper brush on it. I think it had a burr on the ratchet. It seems fine now. So anyway, glad to hear that. Glad to discover that. Glad to fix it. Another gunsmithing endeavor for me, right? I know my limitations. I don't do real gunsmithing. I don't play one on TV or anything like that. And especially if it's a borrowed gun like this, it goes back. I think they put these on the gun broker, the Hickok 45 video guns. But, you know, where it's not mine, yeah, there's not many things I'm going to be doing to it. Yeah, that way. However, with this Smith & Wesson, it is mine. It was mine once I paid for it, and I brung it home. So if I want to take a sledgehammer to it, I can do that. I didn't have to do that, but I had to do a little stoning and stone it. Get it stoned. So I don't know, I'm rambling already. That's a bad sign, isn't it? So let me shoot this again before I shoot the. Well, they're both in the same chambering the way I have them set up here, so I didn't have to bring a lot of different ammo out here. I'm gonna shoot some 38 specials in this mountain gun in case I'm in the mountains and I just need 38 special. I don't know. Yeah. Well, speaking of Davidson's, we appreciate them. Davidson's Gallery of Guns for their support. Several guns from them lately. Great company, great people. Guaranteed lifetime replacement on any firearm you purchase there. So check them out. Spend some time this week with one of their people. Yeah, key contact. Tell you about that maybe. And then of course Silencer Central. Appreciate their support. Those wonderful Banish suppressors. We have them around here pretty often, don't we? Being a little more quiet than we usually are. Then the Sonoran Desert Institute, sdi.edu. Check them out. Get some distance learning, gunsmithing, firearms technology, drone technology, brain surgery. Well, no brain surgery, I'm sorry. But all those other things you could do. So check them out. Meanwhile, I need some brain surgery, don't I? You know, I used to be in publishing and medical publishing in the 80s, and it was funny. You know, we published medical textbooks, nursing textbooks, and all that, and we had some really definitive textbooks that were used in a lot of medical schools, nursing schools, and medical environments, you know, kind of thing. And there was one book I was joked about. It was the essentials. We had a book on surgery. Neurosurgery, you know, all kinds of surgery, big books, and you know, big ones. But we had one that was about that thick, about a third the thickness. And it was the essentials of neurosurgery, and you know, I always made jokes about that. The essentials of brain surgery. You know, like the person wants a crash course before he does a little brain surgery. Actually, it's not that silly. You know, in your medical school. If you're not going to be a brain surgeon or get into neurosurgery or surgery at all or whatever, you still go through various rotations and study different things. You're not going to be a pediatrician. but you need to know about babies, right? But not as much as that person who's going in full-time to be a pediatrician, right? And we have one of those too, essentials of pediatrics or something, you know. So it's for the people that are just wanting some knowledge of that, or need some knowledge, and they go through that rotation at some point and learn the basics of, okay, anyway, kind of funny. Thought you'd appreciate that. It's like me joking about finding a YouTube video on brain surgery so that I'd be able to do that. All right, what am I doing? I'm going to shoot some special. Now, I've messed with the sights a little bit. I fired this a couple of times, or 3 or 4 actually. Not extensively, but I think I have the sights pretty close. Yeah, we're back. Well, it's got a pretty nice double action. Click. Yeah, pretty nice double. And if you're not familiar with the 686 mountain gun, it's basically a 686 frame, L frame. Differences are, what are they? Well, you don't have the full underlug because it's a mountain gun. One of the primary criteria for the mountain guns, if you look at any of them across the board, made back in the 80s, 90s, whenever, or now, is to reduce the weight but still give power, a powerful handgun to have with you, that you might not shoot a great deal, but you carry it a lot, but it's still shootable. Okay, so you could pack some heavy 357, some 180 grains or maybe 200 grain bullets in this thing, bear load, whatever, and some kind of hunting load, whatever. It might kick more, a little more, because it has some reduced weight, but it will handle it. And even the trigger is kind of cut out in the back. I'm not really fond of that, but that's, I guess, the reason. And what else? You got the beveled, or kind of the rounded, beveled cylinder. If you can see it, not tremendously, but. And what else? And of course, your lockup is different. You got a lockup right here in the crank, kind of like the old triple locks. But you don't have a lockup out here. You don't have that pin out here. So pretty nice, pretty nice. Supposed to be a pretty strong pistol. Not quite as heavy as if you had a 686, 586 in the same barrel length, 4-inch and all that, it would be heavier. Yeah, it'd be heavier. So this thing is pretty convenient, feels pretty light. Somebody said online, I saw it said it was lighter than a Model 19, the same size, length, and everything, Model 66. 19, maybe, because you don't have that full underlug, and the barrel maybe is not quite as thick as a 19 or a 66. I don't know, I'll have to get, yeah, I've got a 4-inch Model 19. I'll have to compare the weights on those two. Now, I took the grips off. It came with some beautiful grips. Bear hug, is that it? I don't know. But they bothered me up here. It was hurt my hand a little bit shooting magnums. They were a little bit longer. I think I have some other Hogue rubber grips that I like better than actually these. But I got these on there to see how I like, and these are fine, but I want to do even better with that. It's kind of a functional, practical firearm. Stainless. It's a new firearm. It's not a vintage gun made in 1947 or something like that. I don't necessarily have to have beautiful wood grips on it. If I find some that feel good, I might go that route. But I'm okay with just some really good rubber grips that feel good, and there you go again, grips. I'm hard to please with grips. It's got a gold bead, actually brass, but they still call it gold bead front sight. I like that. Okay, mountain gun. No key lock. Did you notice that? Yeah, thank you, Smith & Wesson. Getting rid of that on these things. So, 38. What else you want to know about? It's been raining about every day. I am tired of rain. Be sure you check out the Hickok 45 Talks channel. I've done some more. I've been delinquent there for about a week, and got the yakking in the front porch swing again. Was in the mood to do it one morning, so I did it. Let's shoot this thing. 1, 2. What am I forgetting? Well, something. Well, anyway, let's thank Alabama Holster too. My favorite holster company. Great little Kydex concealment holsters. Okay, use them every day. Every day. Wonderful, wonderful devices, no doubt about it. Alabama Holster. Don't forget them. So let's see if this thing actually is moved up. Okay, let's try it. So, need I tell you, when you have a 357 Magnum cylinder, you can shoot 38 special or 357 Magnum, right? That's what they tell me. Post load 5. There we go. All right, let's try it. See where it hits. All right, the next one is going to go boom. All right, that was an empty chambers while it clicked. What about Clyde over there? All right. Can't hate a cowboy gun if you can shoot a Bigfoot with it, can you? Oh man. Well, I took out a bowling pin and two 2-liters. Woo! What a bullet that was. I'll have to look at the video. I'm not sure how that happened. All right, 357 38 cylinder in there. I shot the 38 Super. That's pretty unusual to have a 38 Super cylinder for a Colt clone. 38 Super, but there's a lot of that ammo floating around. A lot of people use it, load for it, compete with it. It's pretty common, you know. I used to shoot a ton of it. I've got a good friend who still shoots a lot of it. He bought he's shooting competition like I did. He bought a 1911, I believe. Did you ever get that? Yeah, and 38 Super, and it's a nice cartridge. It's really nice. So anyway, a lot of that out there. Part of it is just a why not, I guess, right? If I'm dreaming this gun up, why don't we come up with a 38 caliber, 1873 Colt single action clone, and just offer chamberings for about any useful cartridge that's a 38. So somebody in the room must have said, hey, don't forget 38 Super. So they did that too. So it makes it a trio. It has 3 cylinders, but 4 different rounds you can fire in it. Okay, so 38. Now when you get 38 in one of these, just a tip. I've given you this tip before, but some of you are poor listeners, or you missed a video here and there. You shouldn't do that. With these guns, any gun, but I don't know, especially a single action, okay, is where I notice it the most, I guess. I mean, it's kind of an issue with any of them, but you typically have a pretty good sized barrel on a single action, whether it's a Colt clone, whatever. The outside dimensions are going to be kind of what they are. So, and the cylinder. And so when you start drilling smaller holes in the cylinder and in the barrel, guess what that leaves? You got it, Ralph. More steel. More steel. You look at the end, this is empty of course. You look at the end of the barrel of a 45 and it's got a bigger hole. It also has, what would you say, thinner walls. You know, it's more like a pipe. 44 kind of same one. But when you get down to 38, you got a fair amount of steel left in that barrel. Same for the chambers. Okay. Now, what's the results of that? Makes the gun heavier. Changes the balance. I don't like the balance as much of a 38. You know, Dad's Hall's, Western Marshall firearm is got about a 6.5 inch barrel or something. It's a pretty long barrel. It's a cowboy style. And it's 38, 357, and that thing, of course, it's a tank anyway, but that thing is really heavy. If it were a 45, it would be a better balance, firearm. Something to think about if you're looking at a 38 and you don't necessarily need longer sight radius than this is plenty long. Because it's pretty heavy, because of the chambering. Okay, you get this on about an 8 3/8 or a 7.5 inch barrel in a clone or one of these or a real Colt or whatever. Man, 7.5 inch barrel and 38, you would, it would be a barrel heavy firearm. I would not like the feel of it. Okay, no charge for that. I expect all of you are going to be out shopping for revolvers if you don't have any, okay? Or even if you have them. The more the merrier, so keep that in mind, okay? Yeah, I was hanging out with the Gallery Guns people, a good friend, pretty good friend of mine. I've known him with other companies and everything else, is a key player there, and he was doing something. He needed to get over to Smith & Wesson in Maryville, Tennessee. I wonder if I wanted to go with him. We don't, do kind of a tour of the plant there. And I've kind of wanted to do that since they're in Tennessee. That'd be kind of cool. But we stay out of that. And everybody knows we stay away from gun manufacturers. Any entanglements and all that. Even though I like them, I don't know of any I hate or anything. But yeah, I'll go with you. There's no video, no content or anything like that. But I'll prowl through there with you. It'd be kind of cool. I've never seen a any firearms manufacturing operation. I'd love to go back in time in the 60s or 70s or 80s and just go through the Colt plant and watch them make my beloved Colt single action armies, that kind of thing, or even today, I guess. But anyway, it was interesting, really interesting. So I trailed through there, with them, and they were all very, very, very cordial and nice. They understood. Totally independent, and they know it. And we talked about some of the guns we've had problems with. They're Smith & Wesson and all that. But they really appreciate what we do. Their guns don't always come out on top. And although I've been a Smith & Wesson shooter forever. But anyway, it was kind of neat, and I'm able to maintain my independence. But it was really neat. It was kind of a personal thing. I just really, it's a selfish thing. I wanted to hang out with my buddy from Gallery Guns, but I wanted to go through there if I could without being kind of the Hickok 45 doing something, or looking for content or promoting Smith & Wesson or anything like that. And because of the circumstances, was able to do that. And it was really, really interesting, seeing the big bins like you buy watermelons in or pumpkins, in season, those big, full of polymer pellets. That's where it starts. And then molding and making the frames and putting the serial numbers on them, right on down the barrel. All that is pretty neat. So anyway, if you hear anything about that or see anything about that, that's what that is. I'm not a Smith rep, and never will be. Some of the companies change over the years. One of the things that is kind of weird, you'll see comments about a Chinese AK or a Colt or Smith & Wesson or anything. We post a video and there might be a comment where somebody, it's not very many, will say so. I wouldn't buy a Smith & Wesson because of what they did in 1990 or 2000, or I wouldn't buy a Colt because of something they did in 1980 or 85, or some gun or the key lock, whatever it might be. We've had videos with my Chinese AKs, which were made in the 80s, and you'll see a comment from somebody occasionally when you post one of those. I can't believe you, China, they're selling everything to Walmart. Well, they're complaining about what's going on today in China, Okay. I've been. This AK is like 40 years old, and half the Smiths and the Colts I own are from the 1970s or 80s, or 90s, and it's just, anyway, it's interesting. So whatever, I'm going to shoot this thing, shoot both of them. But oh yeah, let's hammer Smith & Wesson again. quality control at a lot of gun companies just needs to be upped. I know it's a challenge. It's always a challenge. You're putting out that many firearms, and I saw how that worked, but you're putting out so many firearms, but some things just you think would be checked. Although, what I'm going to show you here, this is something, this is very educational, because as brilliant as I am and as smart as I am, I had never seen it, and it fooled me. It fooled me. Yeah, can you imagine me ever being fooled by anything? Well, I picked this up. It came in. I was on the way to shoot with a buddy of mine out in the wilderness, about an hour's drive from me. Well, I was having lunch on the way and got a call from Clarksville Guns and Archery. They said, come in. Oh, great. I'm glad I threw in a box of 38 357 Magnum. I didn't expect you to come in. And so I picked it up and went on out there, and so we fired the first shots. I let him fire the first shots, and we both shot it. And you know what was happening? If you've shot revolvers a lot, you've probably had this experience maybe. You'd fire it, and then it wouldn't want to advance, to turn the wheel. Wouldn't want to turn up, what's up, and you mess with it, and you jiggle it, and help it out, and then it would go to the next chamber. Okay. And you resume shooting, and it might do it again. And that happened repeatedly. And I was really disappointed, because when I got it, I thought, oh, yeah, I really like this, the feel and everything, the trigger. And then I got a problem like that with it. I was really disappointed, because I've had problems like that with revolvers, not many. I had a Colt single action, my very first one back in the 70s that did that. It just would hang up. You fire a shot or two, and the cylinder wouldn't want to advance, Oh, great. You'd have to force it or mess with it. And what with it, I sent it back a couple of different times. The bushing and the recoil shield back here, some of you are familiar with that. There's a little insert back there on about all revolvers, I guess. It was not flush, and maybe it was even moving or floating out on it or something like that. And they just couldn't seem to get that fixed. I finally had to sell it or trade it, but the problem is you don't have a lot of clearance between the head of the shell, the primer. If that primer backs out at all, or you got any kind of thing like that, it's not going to want to advance. It's going to hang up on anything here if it's not smooth. If it's not perfectly flat and smooth, it's still good, I guess. Okay, so that's what I was looking at. What is going on there? Is that bushing? I felt like, well, maybe it's raised just a hair. So that's all I could figure out. And maybe it's the gap between, the forcing cone and the front of the cylinder. I was holding it up every time I looked. Yeah, it's mighty small. I don't know if that's it or not. And it would only happen with Magnum ammo. There you go. So you gunsmiths, people that do mess with these, who've had experience with revolvers, follow me on this, because this was my thinking process. I was trying to use logic here. Okay, it's hanging up for some reason after it's been fired, but only with Magnum ammo. I thought, okay, more pressure, maybe more cruds coming out, and it is hanging up at the forcing cone a little bit. Or something about that recoil shield with hotter ammo. But I would look at the brass, and the brass was flattened out very well, very flat. There was no primers hanging up or anything like that. So it was getting perplexing, and we both shot it. It happened with both of us. Every time, I think, we fired Magnum ammo in it, and then never with 38 Special. It just wasn't computing. Couldn't find anything, any aberrations with the head of the primers or the head of the shell or the primers or anything like that. So it didn't seem to be rubbing on the recoil shield. But it wasn't just difficult to turn. You'd get it. You'd fire it, it doesn't want to advance, and you'd try to cock, and it wouldn't move. It wouldn't move at all, even with a lot of pressure, which was weird. If it was just some dirt or the primer, you can force that on around, and sometimes you couldn't move it at all. So we'd mess with it and jiggle it and everything. And so, I don't know. Next day I got it out. I said, well, I guess I'm just going to take this thing back to Smith. I was going to take it over there to Maryville, maybe, if I hadn't figured it out. So I got some of my, I actually have some gunsmithing stones, really nice stones I bought from Peacemaker Specialist years ago. Now, I don't do gunsmithing like that. I know better than to mess with a revolver too much or anything like that. I know my limitations. But I thought, okay, I'm going to put this really smooth, fine stone on that forcing cone. Make sure there's not a burr there that's holding that. You know, there's a little bit of it on the recoil shield, and it felt really flat and smooth. And then that too, I didn't do much. I don't think I even took anything off more than the dirt probably. And I looked up and, at it again. Okay, there's enough gap there. That shouldn't be an issue. So I fired some specials, no problem. Put some magnums in. This was at my shooting table. Magnums in, I fire, same thing. Locked up tighter than a drum. Wouldn't move. I couldn't even force it to move. So, okay, get my brain in gear here. Look at this closely. Figure it out. Some of you might know already, but probably not many. So let me put it's easier to show with actual ammo, but I'll just put some brass in here. Maybe I can show it. Figure it out. I have been a revolver guy since 72, 3, and double action revolver guy since 73. So many Smith & Wessons, Colts, and everything else. So this was a new one for me. I just thought, well, it's just something I can't figure out. It's something about the force. It has to be. There's only so many things that can hang it up. And when I would open it up and work the action, there was no problem with the action. I take the ammo out, or even just have the empties in there, like put all the empties back in, and couldn't get it to do it. It's the freakiest thing. So I ain't too smart, but I know trial and error and kind of process of elimination if you can. Well, I don't know if I can show you this. I have to get like this probably, but I got on my shooting table and I fired some magnums. I brought that thing around. It locked up, like I said. Well, I got to looking at that thing. I said, okay, now what is holding it? I got a flashlight and everything else and put it in there. But I noticed as I was doing that, I'll show you what I saw. Okay, one of these down here, keep it out, I can't, there we go. Okay, this empty right here was sticking out like that. I don't know if you can see that, but it was out just a little bit, if I can get it, yeah, just like that. All right, well, it was, I'll turn this one. Now, since I fixed it, it goes back in when I turn it. You see that? Let me get one out there again. Come on, gravity, help me. That one's stuck. That's the thing, you get pressure when you fire, a lot of pressure with 357 Magnum, so some of them would expand enough, they wouldn't do it, I guess, but, so, like that, if it's, which would be normal. Well, like with this one, since I fixed it, it just pushes it back in and everything. But what was happening, this little, as it comes around here, there's a little ledge right there that had a sharp edge on it, and it was catching on that, and I just stoned it down. And you can see that, just something, if it ever happens to you, and it probably won't. I probably had 50 revolvers in my life. I've never had that happen. But there's a little ledge there, and it was out a little too far, and I took that same really fine stone and worked it down a little bit, and even doing just a little bit, I could tell the difference, and I realized, yep, I'm right, I'm a genius, that's what it is. And so it didn't take much. So I guess whoever finishes up revolvers in any gun company, that's part of the task, and maybe they have to do a little stoning or whatever, finish work, and it just wasn't done on this. So I was actually delighted to see that was it, and could see that little ledge. Because some other problems you have can be very complicated, right? And unfixable by me, an amateur. But that, I thought, okay, that is definitely what it is. Because then I would take that same case and push it in, and going around. So that's why it would not just be difficult to turn when we were shooting magnums. You just couldn't turn it often, okay? And then, of course, it makes sense because only with magnums and under recoil, those would come back a little bit. See? I'm just a genius. Well, once I figured it out, I'm a genius. So, I will send all of you an invoice for that, because when you get your revolvers, your first revolver or your third or whatever, you could run into that, okay? And it's also one of those things that there are other reasons that can happen, because I've had it happen. Because the forcing cone, I had a Taurus one time, I really had to stone down the forcing cone to get that cylinder to turn once it had been fired at all. And that's what it was. And then, like I said, you can have problems with that recoil shield. On some guns, I don't see it as much anymore, but so you got all those things. That's usually the problem. You know, it's kind of like you have a flat tire. You probably got a nail in your tire or something. Maybe it's something else this time. You know, maybe I don't know, groundhog bit your tire or something. Okay, let's use some specials. So anyway, the moral to that story is I are a gunsmith, right? Let's put one of these on the gong. This firearm has never hit this gong. It may never yet. Sort of hurt it. It did hold up a little bit. There we go. Hold that up a little bit. You notice it's a 7-shot. It's I don't think they call it a plus, but you same as. Holds 7 rounds, and it's a pretty handy size and feel. It's not overly heavy. Would handle most situations out in the woods. Not a bad choice. It says mountain gun right there on it. See that on the barrel? Here I am, breaking the law again, shooting it on relatively flat ground, at least not in the mountains, right? But just don't tell anybody. Yep, I keep violating the gun laws, firing mountain guns outside the mountains. Okay, so sorry about that 10-minute diatribe on the problem, but you know how it is. You can relate to that. You get a new firearm or a car or I don't know, whatever, a wallet or whatever it is, and there's a problem with it. You say, oh man, because you're excited to get it, you know, and then can't wait to shoot it or drive it or whatever it is, a fishing reel or a bow or something, and then there's a problem with it. It's like a slap in the face. You were so excited about it on whatever level, you know, jumping up and down, but it's always fun, get a new gun or something like that, and then fire it, and then have problems with it, especially problems that are kind of a mystery. Mystery. It's one thing if your sight, you discover the sight's too loose and wants to fall off or something like that, the grips won't fit. You know what the problem is. Maybe you don't know how to fix it exactly right now, but you know someone who can, or you know what needs to be done. But when it's something you just can't figure out, and it's also a lesson I have profited from that is whenever you're having a problem with something that's kind of frustrating like that, you can't figure out whatever, it really is good to, okay, give it up for today, tonight maybe, and then revisit it in the morning, you know, have a cup of coffee, relax, and then look at it more carefully, you know, and you know, you're not trying to diagnose something on the fly. You know, we were having fun shooting different guns and all that, and you know, it wasn't as good of, you know, it's just easier when you're, okay, all I'm doing right now is looking at this firearm and seeing if I can kind of figure out what is happening or what is not happening that needs to be happening for this thing to function properly, okay? So, I'll send Smith & Wesson a bill for that. How about that? What do you think that's worth? $600-800? Yeah, just in mental anguish, and then all the genius it took for me to finally figure it out. Yeah, they might have known this was coming to me, and they just wanted to create frustration, get even with me for having problems with Smiths here and there a time or two. All right, pretty cool. Pretty cool. What else was I don't want to yak too much. I've already yacked a lot, haven't I? Well, I'll tell you what, I've got another firearm that you'll be seeing at some point. First, I do some torture testing, and my buddy from Gallery of Guns brought it by. I may have told you this, that I was going to have at some point a registered Magnum to shoot. I started to bring it out today. I didn't do it. Maybe next week. A real registered Magnum. Some of you know exactly what that is, and you understand the significance of that. You understand how cool I am for having access to one. No, you understand how cool that revolver is, how kind of rare it is. And to have one that is in shooting condition is pretty cool. One that's is not a put away in the safe queen that you don't ever want to touch, but it's a real registered Magnum made in 1937. And more on that later. I'll do a video on that and give you the history of those things. It was the first 357 Magnum, 1935. Okay, kind of the predecessor to the Model 27, you know, and then of course you had the Model 19 later in the K-frame and all that. So it's a in-frame, although they didn't call them in-frames back then. But you ordered them. You didn't just go buy one at the gun shop. You had to order that when those came out. And barrel length you wanted, all that, sight set up, and there weren't all that many of them made. They were expensive for the times, you know. By dollars today, $1,500, $2,000 maybe. Not many people had them, you know. They went through some police departments, but they were expensive. This one comes from the New Hampshire State Police that started, I think, that year, and they started up with those things. I don't know if they got a discount or not with Smith, but they had registered Magnums. This is one of them. And there was something else I was going to say about it. Oh yeah, some interesting people had those. I read Jimmy Stewart, Clark Gable, who else? Gary Cooper had registered Magnums, so it was more likely to be people with some means back then that would have it, you know, with some financial resources, because they were pretty expensive and it was a new thing and all that. Anyway, registered Magnum, not many of them around that you're going to have access to. Like a Glock 18 or something. Okay, well, let's shoot this Trio again. I didn't bring the other cylinders out, but let's shoot a Magnum though. Yeah, here's a Magnum. Speaking of 357 Magnum, I don't think I've shot Magnums in this thing. You know, it's interesting. I don't know what to look for if I see a case head doesn't seem to get seated or I've got some issue. You know, I think I did. No, I didn't. I put 5. Because you could have something like that with one of these, I guess, as well. I've never had that either. Like I say, that was a new experience. All the double action revolvers I've had, owned, fired, traded, and still have. That has never been something. So it wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even know what I didn't know was the thing. If you're a gunsmith, you've probably seen a gunsmith has seen everything, just like a surgeon or something. But I had never had that experience. Had never known anybody who's had that experience. My buddy I went to shoot with has been a revolver guy forever too, and he had never seen that. And when I explained to him what it was, so we didn't know the day I said that we were shooting. Okay, Magnum. This thing's pretty heavy, so it ought to handle Magnums pretty well. Doesn't mean I'll be able to hit anything, but it should handle the recoil, not shake apart, right? Boom. You got to hit a 2-liter with this. How about a red one? Make him bleed. How about let's magnemize the Cowboy. Let's magnemize the plate, dirty plate here. Knock some of the dirt off of it. That's my favorite thing to do when a plate is near the ground, it gets muddy like that. I hate to paint over mud, even on a target. It violates all the codes of painting. What I like to do is take a 12 gauge with birdshot and clean that thing off. Does a pretty good job of that. Yep, there we go. The Wild West. Okay. This is the Pietta Trio, by the way. In fact, this one is a Davidson's exclusive. Yeah, that came out I think last year with them, but I never experienced it. So I requested that from Davidson's Gallery of Guns. They have a lot of guns. And bingo, here it is. Brass like that's kind of a nice touch, isn't it? You don't really get that on some of the Colt, early Colts you did, especially black powder frames and black powder percussion pistols and that kind of thing. But Not generally on any of the Colt single action armies, right? They'll fit. I think you can interchange like the 1860 percussion or the Navy Colt grips and everything, trigger guard, and put it on a Colt single action arm. I know people, I think some people did that early on, and today you could do it. If you wanted a bigger grip, you could get the grip from an 1860 percussion 44. And I think even all the clones, and they'd probably fit on this gun. And they're bigger. They're not a Bisley grip, they're just a bigger grip. You'd think I'd like them, and I'd like them okay, but I'm fine with the plow handle. But yeah, they'd be interchangeable, I think. So, anybody out there done that before? Oh yeah, what else? Get out of here. Talking too much, shooting too much. Got to shoot this thing again. I really do like this a lot more than I thought I would. I like that gold bead. They're brass, but we call them gold. I don't know. I'm a sucker for a nice revolver. That's just all there is to it. It's going to be nice if in 10 years or whenever, however long it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be that long. I don't know. But when every Smith that comes out is like that, it doesn't have a key lock on it, right? That will be nice. So, anyway, young people, someone left a comment. Where was that? Some advice someone gave to remove toxic people from your life. And I thought, you know what? That is such great advice. Simple, but great advice. Just get them out of your life. Don't have anything to do with them if they're toxic. And also, if they're just even negativity is toxic, right? When we think of toxic, we think of maybe more lethal, more problematic people. But some people are just, they're not necessarily all that toxic, but they're just always negative about everything. And if you ever notice how that kind of drags you down when you're around them, they can drag down like a whole group of you even to some extent, where they're always seeing the negative side, or they're just basically negative, you know. You might want to limit your time with them. You really. Tough to do sometimes, especially if they're family, right? But you know, negative people don't seem to realize or care the effect they have on people sometimes. I guess they don't even realize they're negative, I guess. They probably, most of them think and I can be negative about some things, you can, we all can, but they would think that, they would say probably that they just see the world for what it is. They're not Pollyannish, you know. Well, I don't know. The world sort of is what you make it, you know. Unless it's just literally really horrible for you. But yeah, attitude's everything. It's kind of what you make it. And if you have a negative attitude, it's just going to be infectious, and you're going to have negative feedback. And I would say avoid those people as well if you can. They just drag you down. You've ever played on a sports team, and you know everybody's revved up, and you're trying to have a great season, do the best you can. You know, challenges that you have, you know, with that and everything. Everybody else is the same way. They're all organized trying to beat you and have a great season. So it's not going to work out for everybody. But if you got someone negative, it just really infects the entire group, doesn't it? You know, you see it more obviously maybe on a sports team. So try to avoid those people. Ignore them, if nothing else. I mean, just ignore them. And of course, you got tons of that online, social media. So that's about all you can do with that. Try to ignore it, right? So that's my advice today. I'm sticking to it. Let me shoot one more time before I make you leave. Let's go with magnums, okay? 357. I've been shooting some Steinel and some Underwood here today. And a Pietta and an S&W. I forgot what that stands for. Okay. Magnum ammo. Double action. Click. All right. I'm glad I'm a gunsmith and I was able to fix that. And I'll write up that invoice and send that to Smith this week. Yeah. The more I think about it, the higher that price get. I think my gunsmithing is worth more. Don't you? I think I should charge more than the average gunsmith because it's hard for me. I've got to think really hard. I have no experience really with it. So I could blow a gasket, you know, having to think so hard looking at something like this because I have very little gunsmithing experience at all. So it's actually more mental taxing for me than it would be for a real gunsmith. So I think I should charge more. Does that make sense? Maybe 1,000. I think 1K. That'd be about right. That's what I'll put on the invoice and send that to Smith this week. Yeah. Think I'll get a check. Glad y'all came out. Life is good.